Good morning and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. Over the past several months, the situation in the Middle East has been getting more and more complex. The death toll of civilians in Gaza, behind whom Hamas fighters hide, is rising. Deadly rocket attacks on Israel by Hezbollah from Lebanon and the Houthis from Yemen continue. All this has resulted in calls for de-escalation from all sides. To explore the situation and possible solutions, I am joined by Elias Aghili Dehnavi. He's an author and researcher from the Abbasid Foundation Fund, a think tank, and Jason M. Olson. He's an American scholar of the Middle East. Welcome, gentlemen, both to TVP World, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'd like to
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Excellent. Good to have you both. I'd like to start with you, Mr. Dehnavi, first, if I may. How would you assess the situation as it currently stands in Gaza?
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, and I would like to extend my gratitude for the opportunity that you've provided for this very important matter today. I would like to also say hi to my friend from the United States who has joined us today for this interview.
Welcome both.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I would like to start with the sudden event that happened in Tehran. Everything in the Middle East is interconnected. So it's more like a butterfly effect. If there is an incident in Tehran, we might see the results across the whole region. And speaking of Tehran, we're talking about the headquarters of the proxy operations, or let's say the scheme writing center for the past half-decade activities that we all have witnessed. This incident was not just a mere attack, to Ismail Hania in Tehran. It was more a political, technical, and let's say geopolitical movement that can affect the current condition in Gaza, even the presidential election in the United States, and also the political scene in Iran. Speaking of Gaza, you've brought up, I should say that this attack has technically made the future negotiation more complex. Because now the Hamas side and also the Iranian side that is backing Hamas technically will withdraw from the further negotiation. They are forced to do so because if they continue to the current negotiation, they might lose their legitimacy in the so-called resistant field.
Mr. Dehnavi, if I may just interrupt you there. I take your point about this assassination or killing of this Hamas leader in Iran as provocative. However, you talk about the butterfly effect. Surely the butterfly effect started in Gaza, did it not? This killing of this leader didn't come out of nowhere. Yes, it's a consequence of a series of complex actions. Certainly, it will make the peace negotiations in Gaza more complex. Mr. Olson, if I may come to you, please. Your brief assessment, please, of the situation in Gaza as it currently stands, and then I'd like us to zoom out and talk about the international implications.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you, gentlemen, for dialoguing. I think Israel has been very clear about its war goals, in the sense that it's looking for the defeat of Hamas's capabilities, really a surrender of Hamas, and an environment where Hamas cannot regain control of the Gaza Strip and pose a threat to Israel any longer, even have the ability to carry out similar October 7th-like attacks. Of course, the hostages the Israeli hostages are still there, and Israel wants to get them home. I think that's a condition that Israel is not going to budge from. So I think right now we're, and I'm speaking only for myself and not on behalf of the United States, but we've got an Israeli policy seeking Hamas's defeat, and we have an American policy seeking a ceasefire in any way or fashion. And so I think there is some friction between these two policies.
Understood, Mr. Olson. But I mean, Prime Minister Netanyahu and his cabinet made it very clear from the start of the invasion of Gaza that those were the war aims, the goals, if you like. However, it hasn't happened. 10 months on, it seems to be a stalemate. That may be an inaccurate description, but there does seem to be nothing moving forward. Hamas is still around. The hostages are still in captivity. So what's going on? What is stopping it? And how can we get things moving towards a positive resolution, in your opinion, Mr. Olson?
Yeah, I think that's the operations that Israel's been conducting throughout the region, including, Israel hasn't confirmed, of course, but the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, taking out the core and highest levels of Hamas's strategic leadership. That's a way to degrade the morale and the mission of Hamas as an organization. I mean, I look at it in terms of World War II. Both the Germans and the Japanese had very radical ideologies. Were not intent on surrendering at any point, but it came to the point that the military weight was so overbearing, and the future of their peoples and their nations were at stake. And so it caused the most senior leaders to, I think, disbelieve in the cause. And I think that's kind of where Israel's strategy is right now, to get to the point where Hamas will lay down the arms and consider the future of the Palestinian people.
Thank you for that, Mr. Dehnavi. If I may come back to you, I mean, that sounds like something that perhaps many people would get behind, that kind of strategy. But it's not just Hamas, is it? It's Hezbollah from Lebanon, and it's the Houthis from Yemen attacking Israel. Now, many are saying that Iran is behind those as well. What's your opinion, sir?
Well, I should say that it's all a network of proxies at work here. Tehran is wisely controlling its proxies as a very effective deterrence tool, and at the same time to control the operation outside the Iranian territorial domain. So, technically speaking, I mean, in terms of geopolitics and military, let's say, diction, we should consider and say that the Iranian government is controlling its proxies according to its national interest. So the Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and Hamas itself, they are all a part of an interconnected network. We've got these militia groups in Iraq, Hashd-e-Shaabi, which all are a part of a bigger organization called Kataibullah. And also we've got so many other groups and subgroups in Syria and in Iraq as well. As you can see, the hierarchy of these organizations are really interconnected. And I cannot say, and no one cannot say, that the main commands are being issued from Tehran, but the evidence are well proof of the main, controls and the main monitorings are being kind of issued and reflected from Tehran. I am sure that you have all heard in the popular discourses that whatever the officials in Tehran say or decide on will be effective in the field.
Understood. Mr. Dehnavi, if I may, I do want to, ask you a question related to what you've just said. Now, it sounds as though all these countries in the region are very conscious of the fact that Iran is pulling the strings. Is there a role that countries like Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia and others could play in getting Iran to actually pull away from this kind of strategy? Mr. Dehnavi.
Well, a very good question, I say. We should consider the fact that there are different players in the Middle East. And we've got the outer region, the players that are playing outside the region. We've got China on one hand and the United States and the Western Bloc on the other hand. I should say that speaking of Egypt or even Saudi Arabia, China's role is highlighted here because it's Chinese that are pulling the string regarding vis-a-vis the Saudis' action in the Middle East, because Chinese have invested highly on the infrastructures in the Saudi Arabia, especially the energy sectors, because China is one of the biggest importer of the Saudis' oil. So for China, the status quo is very important, and as a result, the Saudis are following the Chinese lead to be the protectors and supporter of the status quo. So we divide these countries into two groups: Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and to some extent Kuwait, and to a bigger extent Bahrain, to be the followers of the status quo and to be the conformist countries. And Iranian, on the other side, are the non-conformists. They want to challenge the balance of power and the status quo being imposed by the Western Bloc.
Right. So
we see that
it's all the more surprising, is it not, that that something isn't actually coming together to tone down Iran's influence. Unfortunately, I do have to move on. I need to move on to one more topic before we end today. And I have a question for you, Mr. Olson. Clearly, the situation in Yemen is a threat to international trade and so on in the region. What is the role that you believe the US should be playing to keep trade routes free, maritime trade routes free?
Yes, thank you. This is a critical issue. It's affecting not just the United States, of course, but the entire global economy. Commercial maritime vessels are having to go around the Horn of Africa, losing billions of dollars in time and also energy by having to divert their routes, and products are arriving more slowly at greater cost. So it's affecting the global economy. This is in everyone's interests. So far, the United States has been trying to contain the Houthis, to retaliate against them. I think we have very difficult decisions ahead of us in how hard will the United States and our allies hit at the Houthis. The Saudis and the Emiratis, as my colleague was stating, they were waging a war on the Houthis, which kind of tapered down because of human rights and famine issues that we're also seeing the same concerns in the Gaza Strip. So I think that what happens in the Gaza Strip also affects what happens in Yemen. And we have to have a cogent strategy, a unified policy to deal with very similar terrorist organizations, Hamas and the Houthis. The Houthis are affecting the global economy more directly. And so I think that, but we need to have, I think, fair, equal rules for both terrorist organizations.
And perhaps a more cohesive international response is called for.
Yes.
Gentlemen, both, thank you very much for sharing your expertise and analysis with our audience. I wish we had more time to continue. Come back and see us soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And that's all we have for you in this episode of World Talks. Don't go away. Lots more coming up as always.